Hello, my name is Elena Mack, and this is my presentation for my final in communications class. So I did on the topic of relational dimensions through the researcher Mary Ann Fitzpatrick. First, we'll just do a general overview of kind of the topic and what it exactly is and stuff like that. So she researched relational dimensions, which were a way for Fitzpatrick to measure and create an instrument to identify what she grouped into 8 dimensions of marriage. So these dimensions of marriage were where couples fit, like, depending on their relationship. And that'll make more sense when I kind of explain what each dimension is. So these 8 dimensions are included in 3 larger overarching categories. Conventional versus non-conventional ideology, interdependence versus autonomy, conflict, engagement versus avoidance. So for the conventional versus non-conventional, the two kind of groups you can be in are ideology of traditionalism, which is where couples conform to more traditional and historic values aligned with this dimension. An example is the wife taking the husband's last name. So a lot of times it's been very traditional, obviously, throughout history, where the woman will take the man's last name, and so that's kind of what that talks about there. Ideology of uncertainty and change is this belief is that the couple's relationship should contain uncertainty and change so that the relationship does not constrain either people. And so that was what that one's kind of about. Interdependence versus autonomy. So there's 4 different groups in this one. There's sharing, where couples in this category will be very open about their emotional communication. They share activities and tasks. Autonomy, where having a personal space exempt from another person. To explain this one a little more, like a man cave is kind of an example of that. Undifferentiated space. So not as many like personal belongings in this category. So an example from an article is, I feel free to interrupt my spouse/mate when he/she is concentrating on something if he/she is in my presence. I open my spouse/mate's mail without asking permission. So again, not as many like, oh, this is my mail, stuff like that. It's not like mine or theirs. It's more like ours and stuff like that. And then temporal regularity. How do couples stick to a schedule? An example is, we eat our meals at the same time every day. So that's, they have a very strict temporal schedule where the couple eats together, they have the same schedule, we'll do it most of the time. So conflict, engagement versus avoidance, there's 2 kind of categories I guess you could be in. There's conflict avoidance, where often couples will not engage in direct conflict, and sometimes will even hide their true feelings about a certain topic to stop an argument or to prevent one. So there's also assertiveness, which is couples in this group have a desire to stand up for themselves. Even with friends, they want to just like defend themselves, even if it's just like a little thing. Traditional couples often do not avoid conflict but aren't necessarily assertive. So this is a personal application of that theory to my life. I'm actually engaged right now, and my fiance and I are working through some of this stuff, so it's been cool to see that. So my fiance's name is Elijah, but Elijah and I align with the ideology of traditionalism. Elijah and I fit better into this one. We do have some adventurous spirit, which is more Elijah, but we typically stick to the norms, and we often try to maintain appearances. With Elijah and I, it was never a question that I would take his last name. We never even explicitly stated the fact. We just had a mutual understanding. So we typically are very traditional with everything that we do. Elijah and I fall high on the sharing scale. We make a priority to express big emotions and share mutual empathy. Both of us encourage each other to open up about how they're genuinely feeling, and I think that's why we fit best into this category. So Elijah and I don't have a space that's off limits from each other. We actually realized we didn't have any autonomy, and we had to change that in our relationship so that we could have more personal time. So this is for the autonomy, personal space one. We spent every single waking moment together, and so some of our other friendships started to kind of dwindle and stuff, so we had to kind of create more space from each other. Elijah and I align with the undifferentiated space ideals. Elijah and I do not see things like my room, my pen, my mail, etc. We have equal ownership of our belongings. We also have very close family relationships and share belongings with them as well. Elijah and I do not align regarding temporal regularity, like a strict schedule and to know what we're doing when. Elijah doesn't. He wants to make tentative plans to hang out and have people come over when they feel like it. And we don't eat meals at the same time, so we don't really align on this one. Elijah and I fall into this assertiveness category. We do not avoid conflict and tend to call each other out. We have issues arguing because we can't not address conflict. And so this kind of goes back to when I was explaining like what this theory is. Like you have to talk something out. Like you can't just avoid it, and you like have to defend yourself in every situation. So and then this is my reflective paragraph on this theory. So I learned a lot about my personal relationships during this theory. I learned that since Elijah and I conform to a more traditional belief set that influences a lot of other dynamics in our relationship, I think the biggest impact on what I learned about myself as a communicator would have to have been how much I aligned with my fiance's beliefs. We only differ on a couple of the dynamics, and I noticed that our relationship already. I got to appreciate how easy it is for us to communicate because we align so much. I can use this information to help us in our premarital counseling, which is coming up soon, so I think it'll be cool to bring up this topic specifically. Anyways, thank you so much for listening to my presentation.